This afternoon's session was kicking off with Dr. Jones, who is our pain specialist that our patients come and see monthly in Liverpool. We also had a really fantastic session with him last year for pain management awareness, and it was so good that we've asked him to come back and do another session. So I will hand it over to Dr. Jones, who has got slides he's going to share. So Dr. Jones, if you do have any problems, we have got them so we can share them on our end as well, okay?
Yeah. Right, so first of all, can you hear me, everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure I've met some of you before, but for those of you who haven't seen before, I'm Andrew Jones. I'm a pain doctor, and I work in Liverpool and Wirral. And I was asked to talk about the emotional aspects of suffering with chronic pain, which is why the title is much more than it hurts. Most people say, well, it's pain, it just hurts. It's not. There's all sorts of other things that are going on at the same time. I'm just going to do a short presentation just to raise some of these issues, and then hopefully we'll have a bit of a discussion afterwards. So if I can have the next slide, please. I just put this in because it's a nice view, and it doesn't exist anymore because it was from my office at the old Royal Liverpool, which has been demolished. But it's looking out over Liverpool, the two cathedrals. In the distance, there's the Royal Mersey, and beyond that, the peninsula of Wirral. And this is places, I live in Wirral, I work in Wirral, and I work in Liverpool. That's to give some context. So next slide, please. Okay. The picture there shows Descartes' idea of transmission of pain. You stick your foot in the fire, it goes up a hardwired wire to the brain, and you feel pain. It's actually a lot more complex than that. And the International Association for the Study of Pain, ISAP, sat down with a big committee in the 70s and came up with this definition, which at first glance looks very clunky, but it stood the test of time because it actually does cover everything you need to get a good definition of what pain is. It says an unpleasant, everyone goes, duh, yeah, we know that, sensory and emotional experience. And it's the emotional experience part of it, which is really, really important. It's associated with actual or potential tissue damage or described in terms of such damage. So you don't actually have to have any tissue damage to suffer from pain. I think that's very important as well. People always think that if something must be damaged if you're getting pain. No, pain can be purely self-generating in your central nervous system, which we'll cover a bit more later on. And described in terms of such pain, people sometimes say, like, it feels like I'm having red hot needles stuck in me. They've never had red hot needles stuck in them, but they're trying to describe it as best they can. Next slide, please. Okay, now this boot belongs to a young lad who was working on a building site, and he came down his ladder, jumped off and landed on a plank with a nail through it, and he went straight through his boot like that. And he was absolutely distraught, as you can imagine, and his workmates couldn't calm him down, and eventually they called an ambulance, and he was put in an ambulance and taken to accident and emergency, where he was still so distraught that it had to be it had to be tranquilized with a drug called fentanyl, which you've probably heard of in rather adverse ways, but it's a commonly used anesthetic drug, and it will act as a sedative. So he was given a good dose of fentanyl. This calmed him down a bit. They removed the boot, and the nail had gone straight between his toes like that. Hadn't actually gone into his foot at all. So the question there is, was he really suffering pain? There was no tissue damage. Well, it was unpleasant for him, for sure. And it was sensory. He thought his foot had been hurt, and it was emotional. He was distraught, had to be given fentanyl to get over it. So you can have pain without tissue damage. Next slide, please. Okay. Salerno is a town in Italy, and it was the site of the invasion of Italy by the Allied forces, American and British. And there was a Navy trauma anaesthetist present called Henry Beecher. And he did a survey into pain, and he took two populations. He took the civilians who lived in Salerno, and he took the servicemen who were part of the invasion of Salerno. And he asked them how much pain they were in and all of the people who got injured or wounded. And he asked them how much pain they were in. He asked them, and he looked at how long it took them to ask for pain relief. And it asked various questions like that. And he came to had some very interesting findings, which were that the Allied troops who were injured or wounded really didn't say they were in very much pain at all. They go sometimes up to 12 hours before asking for pain relief. And they asked for much less pain relief than the civilians. The civilians, on the other hand, said instantly, I'm in loads of pain, please give me some pain relief, and kept on asking and asking for pain relief. So exactly the same tissue damage, bullet wounds, shrapnel wounds, crush injuries, in both populations, completely different analysis of the patient's pain. And Dr. Beecher thought that this was due to their different approach to what was happening. The civilians had their town bombarded, blown to bits. They had a picture like this in front of them where there were troops coming up the beach towards them. And so naturally, they were very, very distressed, very, very upset. And so they felt the pain quite badly. The invading troops, on the other hand, once they realized that they were injured but weren't going to die, thought, wow, that's great. I'm going to go home. I'm going to survive. And so the pain was much less severe for them. So next slide, please. We'll try and whiz through this. It's a very simplified version of what happens when you hurt yourself. So next slide, please. I'm a clumsy person. I'm hammering a nail in, and I've just smashed my thumb with the hammer. So, and the pain goes from my thumb into the spinal cord, across to the other side, and then up to the brain. So next slide, please. When it gets to the brain, lots of things happen to it. First of all, it goes to the periaqueductal gray, then it goes to the thalamus, and then up to the sensory cortex. Now, if pain is a warning, as we're always taught, that's all you need. So why have we got all these other things happening here? All of them feeding back eventually into the frontal cortex. Frontal cortex is where your personality lives. It's where your emotions are. So this is stimulating all the emotional effects that you get with pain via this pathway. Now, you can do interesting scans of people's brains, and people with chronic pain have much less grey matter, much less grey neurons, particularly in the frontal cortex. Now, I don't know if there's a cause or an effect, but it demonstrates quite clearly that people who have chronic pain have neurological changes in their brains. I think that's important as well. Plus the fact that frontal cortex is emotional. So moving on to the next slide, please. Now, this is a chap called Phineas T. Gage. He worked as an engineer on the railroads in the United States in the mid-19th century. And his job was to blow up anything in the way. So if he came across a small hill that they wanted to go through, he would drill a hole in it, he'd put a stick of dynamite into it, he would tamp it down with his crowbar, which he's holding there, and then he'd light the fuse for the dynamite and retire to a safe distance. Unfortunately, one day he tamped the paste of dynamite down with his crowbar, the dynamite exploded and sent the crowbar straight through his head, as demonstrated by reconstruction of his skull. Now, this took out almost completely his frontal cortex. What was left was destroyed by an abscess, which he had to have drained later on, and he had a complete personality change. From being a fairly normal sort of person, he started staggering around the streets, shouting insults, picking fights with people. And a friend of his said he was no longer Gage, he was a different person. So again, this is how we first found out the importance of the prefrontal cortex to your personality and your emotions. Interestingly, he showed some kind of signs of recovery, Mr. Gage. He went off to Peru and became a stagecoach driver. Now, this says two things. One is that he had enough cognitive function to remember the route of his stagecoach. And the other is that there's no future for a stagecoach driver who shouts insults and tries to pick fights with his passengers. So he had gotten a bit better. So next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to talk a bit randomly here. This is a paper that was published last year in 2025, and it analyzes all the research there's been into the role of the emotional experience in chronic pain experience. It makes lots of different points. It brings in lots and lots of evidence, and you'll have to accept that there's a huge amount of evidence now that emotions and chronic pain it's completely intricately related. Next slide, please. So this is a direct quote from it. Indeed, there is a myriad of studies confirming a link between chronic pain and negative emotions such as depressed mood, anger, and pain-related anxiety and fear. This underlines that a variety of negative emotional symptoms are embedded in the chronic pain experience. Now, this is interesting. Anger, pain-related anxiety, and fear. Now, fear, if you have chronic pain, you fear making it worse. So you tend to restrict your activities in case these activities make it hurt more. And that will have a vicious circle, making your pain worse. And so it will go on. Anxiety is an extremely unpleasant emotion anyway, but anxiety also will make your pain get worse. There's a well-recognized thing with chronic pain patients called the negative circle. And it starts off with your pain goes a bit worse because pain fluctuates when you have chronic pain. It's never stable. The pain going worse, it triggers negative thoughts. Oh dear, is it going to be like this forever? Am I going to keep on getting worse? This triggers negative emotions, anxiety and fear, and possibly anger. Oh, why is this happening to me now? This, of course, makes the pain worse. The pain goes worse. It again triggers negative thoughts, and the negative thoughts trigger the negative emotions, and so it goes on and on. And then that's well observed, and this is the explanation for it. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. And this is pain management. I practice pain medicine. I'm a doctor. I practice pain medicine. Pain management is multidisciplinary. It involves doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, psychologists, and any of those other professions will say straight away, as a typical doctor, you said doctor first. Sorry, but I'm a doctor. And there are various ways of managing chronic pain. If there was just one technique or one tablet or anything, which if you gave it to everybody with chronic pain, it made them better, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be bothering with this meeting. Pain is extremely difficult to treat. The tools we have are not very good. The drugs, for example, one of the main drugs we use for neuropathic pain and for fibromyalgia is pregabalin. You've probably all heard of pregabalin. And it's marketed by the company that sells it as being absolutely brilliant. The number needed to treat is 4. In other words, if you give 4 people with chronic pain pregabalin, only one of them will get a benefit. So it's not good. In another world, if I was an anaesthetist, and you just wouldn't be selling an anesthetic drug if you had to give it to 4 people before one of them went to sleep. It just wouldn't happen. But that's the best thing we've got, pregabalin. It's not very good. Opiates. As we know, there's a big problem we're dealing with problems with long-term opiates now. They become less effective with time, and they have problems with addiction. So those drugs aren't very good either. We can use interventional techniques. I do this quite a lot. But again, it's brutal. You're sticking needles in people, which is very painful. And again, the benefits will only last for a limited length of time before they have to be done again. So we're moving more on in the chronic pain world to more sustainable techniques. And these involve using techniques which try and modulate the emotional response to pain. Put simply, it means we try to give people a better quality of life in spite of the pain. We accept we're bad at treating the pain. Maybe we can make them feel better, have a better life, and enjoy things more, simply. And this involves talking therapies. You can go and see a psychologist. You can talk things through with a psychologist. You can set goals for how you're going to try and make your life better. You can do mindfulness. You can do acceptance and commitment therapy, or cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, acceptance and commitment therapy is very interesting. It's almost impossible for a patient to get better with chronic pain if they don't accept that this is how they are now. It's not nice. You don't want to accept that this is how it is. But until you do, you can't start moving forward. We had a very interesting session with a group of patients once in a CBT session who came in one week and said, we've just realized, he said, we've been talking among ourselves, we just realized acceptance isn't giving in. Acceptance is just the first part of trying to get better. Now, I have most experience with cognitive behavioral therapy. This involves the cognitive bit is education. This is what's happening with chronic pain, a bit like some of the stuff we've done earlier in this talk. The behavioral bit is how you can get on and change your behavior to try and improve your pain. This is where the exercise and physiotherapy comes in. Exercise can be very beneficial for pain. It can make you more supple if you're suffering from muscle stiffness. It produces endorphins, which are the body's own opiate painkillers. Basically, there are several things that will produce endorphins. Exercise is one, hot food is another, and laughing will do it as well. So if you go for a walk to the nearest curry house and meet your funniest friend, you'll get a fair few endorphins. Physiotherapy can be helpful. I know a lot of patients will immediately be thinking, physiotherapy, I've had that. It was awful. It really made my pain worse. You need to find somebody who understands chronic pain and will produce a treatment mechanism which will suit you. Um, the other side of exercise and physiotherapy is, of course, relaxation. Now, when I think about relaxation, I think putting my feet up in front of the telly with a glass of wine. That's not what we mean here. We're talking in terms of meditation, doing yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi. And this is the counterpart of exercise. If you just exercise without having some sort of meditation technique, then you're not going to get as much of an effect on your chronic pain. Now, just moving on to more specialized areas of talking therapies. In Liverpool, we have a shared reading group. Now, the Reader is a national organisation, but it's based in Liverpool, and it promotes shared reading. This is a model where you have a trained facilitator who has a group of people where the facilitator picks a piece of literature, the facilitator or the group, someone in the group, read it, then they pause and they discuss how that piece of literature makes them feel. And you can read or not read as a participant. You can take part in the discussion or not take part. But the whole model is that this is people engaging with literature. And there are all sorts of benefits to this. There's a clear benefit due to group work. Group work is well known to produce benefits in quality of life for people, not least because chronic pain is very isolating. You can end up living virtually housebound if you're not careful. But the actual literature itself does produce benefits. And we did some research and we found that although the impact on pain was very minor, people felt a bit less pain the evening after the session. These are weekly sessions. But after that, the pain came back to normal. But they felt great benefits in terms of well-being, in terms of increased agency, and they just felt better. They really enjoyed the group and it makes them feel better. We did another bit of research which found out that shared reading probably has an equivalent therapeutic effect to cognitive behavioral therapy. And we also demonstrated that it's probably a very good adjunct to CBT in that you have your CBT session, that's the end of it, you go off and have to apply it. Whereas shared reading is a weekly thing, so it can just top up your CBT. Medication has its place. I know we've been talking about how bad it is, but if you have a medication which you know will help with your pain, then when you have a flare up, you take your medication and it will allow you to continue with your exercise, continue attending your group sessions, that sort of thing. Some people will not find any medication which helps them at all, but some people will, and that can be helpful. And just moving on to interventions, this is injections, nerve blocks, trigger point injections. And again, if you have a flare up, then if you know that you've got an intervention which will help you, you can have it, and it will again allow you to carry on with your exercise and your physiotherapy and going to your group sessions and all that sort of thing. So medication and interventions do have a place, but purely as an adjunct to help facilitate the talking therapies. Okay, next slide, please. And I think I've talked enough now. I think I've given us a taster of where we're coming from in terms of emotions. And I hope that we can have a bit of a discussion from here on.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. That was really, really helpful. So yeah, I think what really sparked mine and George's interest after your last session was the fact that there's this emotional link to pain, and perhaps that's not something that people are maybe allowed to focus on or try not to focus on, but there is actually like a really important part of it, isn't it? Is there anybody in this meeting that wants to kick off with a discussion point or would like to share anything, or even in fact ask Dr. Jones anything about pain and emotional aspects of pain? I know I feel like I'm putting people on the spot here, but it'd be really useful if there were anybody. If you didn't want to speak, then you can pop it into the chat box, which, just as a reminder, is at the bottom of the screen. It's the little bubbles that say chat, and then you can pop it in there.
I hate the silence. I don't know, it's because I've covered everything and everyone's happy. I'll send everybody to sleep.
Bear with, we have got somebody in the chat. I'm just it's sometimes I feel like I'm grieving the life that's been taken from me because of the way I've had to manage my life and the restrictions.
Yes, I mean, that is a really common and a really justifiable reaction. Part of chronic pain is a bereavement process. You have lost all sorts of things from your previous life. Um, that's where the acceptance comes in that saying, yes, it's awful. I feel really grieving for it, but you won't move forward unless you think this is how it is now. Where do I go from here? But yes, it's massive, and a lot of people don't understand it. I mean, a common thing for some patients is their friends and relatives saying, well, come on, and, come out and have a bit of time, or, come to a social event, come to a family wedding. And you know that you can't, because the pain will just, it'll interfere. And you have this, again, as well as the grief, you have the guilt feeling. Well, if I go to the wedding, will I get a flare up of pain, and will have someone have to bring me home, and it'll spoil their experience. And all these things are things that are difficult to deal with. This is why probably seeing a psychologist can be helpful to analyze and deal with these emotions. And again, grief may not be a negative emotion, but it can become a negative emotion.
Thank you. I hope that was helpful. A follow on from that before we go to the next question is, can you access ACT by self referral?
It depends on where in the country you live. I personally haven't got access to it, but there are many practitioners around, and some of them are available through the National Health Service. But it's like all health provision, and particularly all pain provision, very patchy depending on where you live in the country.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a question of just exploring what's available locally for you, unfortunately.
Thank you. Another question is, how best can you support someone experiencing daily pain?
First of all, I think you have to be patient. It's very, very difficult, but it is important. As I say, we used to do regular CBT sessions, and one of the comments at the end of it was, "Why don't you run a session like this for my friends and relatives?" Because the patient themselves from the CBT have got a much better understanding of their pain and what was happening, but they weren't getting any different response from their family and relatives. So how do you support them? I think you, first of all, as I say, you have to, I think you have to validate it. A lot of people complain because their relatives say, oh, come on, you can do this, pull yourself together. That's not a very helpful response. I think you have to validate it. I think you have to help people. It's no, in the same ways, it's no good saying, come on, pull yourself together. It's also no good saying, well, that's where you are. You try and work out between you and the patient how you can best help them to make their lives better. And it's not easy. I'm not suggesting it is.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's difficult trying to explain to your friends and relatives and obviously the people close to you that you hit the nail on the head earlier about the fact, because it's chronic pain, sometimes it's better and sometimes it's worse. And I think it's quite a difficult situation to be able to explain that there are some days when you just do not or cannot get out of bed, and other days when you can live a relatively normal life. And I think that's quite a it's quite difficult to be able to explain that to people. And I'm trying to think of an example that I could use to give to people to say, well, this, think about this. This is what it's like, really. I think people hear chronic pain and they think you must be bedridden and you're, this, but obviously some days are better than others, but it
Yeah.
is difficult to explain. I think the hardest part, and obviously I think Kelly mentioned it about the grief process, but once you get through the grief process, it's trying to manage your relationships with people to say, sometimes I can't do it, and sometimes I may be able to do something.
Yes. It is very difficult. And you're right about the fluctuations, good days and bad days. Some people who are very unlucky have good months and bad months, and that's not great. And up to a point, it can't be managed. There's no way you can say to yourself, right, I'm going to bed tonight, and I'm going to make sure I have a good day tomorrow. It can't be done. You make a decision when you wake up, and this makes it very difficult. It makes it difficult for people to hold down jobs because they may not be able to get into work one day. You need a very understanding employer for that sort of situation. And as you say, for relatives, they'll come around and say, right, coming down the pub this evening. Oh, I can't. I really can't. And it's difficult in that situation as well, for sure. But as I say, coming back to acceptance again, this is the starting point. And this is where you can start working with your friends and relatives to try and educate them. And again, difficult, but if you explain to them, they will get it eventually.
I think as well the explanation of the personality, sometimes personality changes, is I think is important, because I think people, it must be very difficult. I try and be really objective, and it must be very difficult for them that some days, you've got, for want of a better, I can only take myself as an example. You've got a very short fuse, and other days you might be very tolerant. I'm quite naturally quite a calm, tolerant person, but sometimes you're like, oh God, I can't, and it's difficult for people to be able to react to that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and that is really difficult. And that is a common problem. I have a small group of patients who come to me regularly for interventions, and they tell me that sometimes their family will say to them, "You're ready for your injections, aren't you? Because they've suddenly gone more tetchy than usual." And I think it's useful to go back to that research we talked about earlier, that there is people in that situation, there is less grey matter in their frontal lobes. This is where their emotions live. So things have changed inside your brain. It's not that you're just being difficult. You're suffering from an illness which has made different connections in your brain. And I think if people understand that, then they're going to be more understanding as well.
Thank you for sharing that, David, with us. That's really good sharing practice. Kelly has asked whether you could tell us more details about the study which found the changes to the frontal lobe in chronic pain patients, because she would really like to read more about that.
Yeah, the title and the authors is on the slide, so we could take that off and let her have it afterwards. The other thing is, if you're interested, there's a huge amount of stuff. If you just go put into your favorite search engine, emotion and pain, it'll come up with loads of stuff. And it's interesting actually. There's obviously money to be made out of it, because one of the things is from Bupa. So
Really?
ignore that one.
Tony's also commented that he feels that it's about accepting the condition and taking ownership of the condition and not letting it take ownership of you. And that may mean doing things for shorter periods. And educating family can be difficult, as they can be overprotective at times.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing about dealing with good days and bad days and things you want to do is that sometimes, because the other problem with good days is that people will try and get everything done that they couldn't do on a bad day, and this will result in more pain. It's called payback pain. And there's sometimes you can just do a deal with yourself. I know I'm going to get some payback pain, but I'm going to go and do something I really want to do. And if I end up in bed tomorrow, that's fine. I can remember one patient who really, really loved dancing, but she went dancing. She couldn't get out of bed for the next 2 days. And eventually she just said, right, okay, I'm going to have a couple of glasses of whiskey so that I'm not in too much pain while I'm dancing. And when I get home, I think I'm not going to be getting up for 2 days. And that was the deal she did with herself. And, sometimes there are other things that can override it. Another patient I can recall was a musician, and he was a composer. And sometimes he would have a deadline, and he knew he had to get that piece of music into the people by the deadline. And so, however bad his pain was, he got on with it. And again, and he did the deal. He knew that once the music was in, almost the instant afterwards, he'd be in bed for a couple of days. So that's another way of managing it. It's not satisfactory. It's not what you choose when you're 20, but it's a question of doing the things that you want to do, things that improve your quality of life.
So I suppose it's almost like planning for the pain, possibly. So doing something that you know that you really enjoy, but unfortunately there isn't a side effect of that, and maybe factoring that in as well, so that you don't actually just avoid doing the things that you love to do altogether. Is it that kind of approach?
Yeah, it's not avoiding it. It's thinking, this is what I'm going to do. It's difficult to plan for, though, because as we've discussed already, you don't know how you're going to be the day you wake up. So it is a question of making the most of the good days, but not overdoing it and getting payback, which is a really tricky thing to do. But I know many patients who, if you actually met them now, you would say, gosh, how awfully disabled they are. But they wouldn't accept that because they know how they've been and they have come to terms with it, and they're now living the life they want to live, even though they may be confined to a wheelchair, for example. And that's part of it as well. Just making the best life you can out of what you have. Which sounds great coming from me, I know, because I haven't got chronic pain. So what do I know? But on the other hand, I have met many, many, many people with chronic pain over the years, and this is the experience that I've gained of it.
Do you think, in your experience, Dr. Jones, that it's much more acceptable, the physical elements of pain, than it is the emotional impacts of pain?
I think acute pain is more acceptable than chronic pain because it gets better and people know it gets better, and people can empathize with acute pain. Oh my God, you've broken your leg. That must be really painful.
Right. Okay.
But with chronic pain, the empathy is very, very missing. And this is from, as we've already discussed, friends and relatives, from doctors, from nurses. If a patient with chronic pain goes into hospital and has an operation, it's usually a complete nightmare getting their pain sorted out afterwards. Because people look and say, oh, look, you're on all these painkillers. How are you still in pain? When, of course, the issue is that the painkillers are for their chronic pain. They need extra for their acute pain after their operation. Just a very simple point. So, yeah, empathy is important and often lacking.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions while we've got Dr. Jones here? It might not necessarily have to be completely on the emotional impact, but pain itself as a topic while we have him here.
Hi there.
Hi, Jazz.
Can you see me? Yeah. It's just out of interest, really. Are there any kind of like quick hacks for somebody that is experiencing pain to, in that moment, distract themselves? I know there's obviously sort of mindfulness and things like that, and we were talking about breath work earlier, but I was just wondering if you have any quick fixes where somebody could look at distraction. I'll give you an example of something that I did this weekend. So I don't experience, like you, I don't experience chronic pain. I don't have AKU, and I'm a runner. I'm a long distance runner, so I ran long distance this weekend, and it was really hot, and I've had hay fever, and my eyes were really itching, and my nose was running, and things like that. And actually, in order to distract myself from my really itchy eyes and the fact that I wanted to pull my own eyeballs out, I actually chose to sting my hand with stinging nettles so I could defer the pain somewhere else. And that helped. So every now and again, I re-stung myself just to take away the pain of itchy eyes. Is that a thing, or am I a bit mad?
No, not at all. Distraction is definitely a thing. You have to work. You have, the problem with, as I said before, if there's one simple solution, then I wouldn't be here anyway. I wouldn't be needed. So it's a question of working out what is the best thing for you. Some people find reading a distraction. Some people find playing music. There are various ways, and it is very much a question of trial and error and finding out what works for you. Most therapists will say that ignoring is bad, but I've come to the conclusion over the years, and with a great friend of mine, Jim Ledson, who did the classes with me, and sadly is no longer with us, we decided actually there's nothing wrong with ignoring. If it works for you, then just do it. And as far as the stinging nettles are concerned, we found a very weird piece of research, which came out of Scandinavia typically, where they found that if people with osteoarthritis of their knees, if their knees were whipped with stinging nettles, their pain got a bit better. So I'll put that out there if anybody's interested in, and they've got a good crop of stinging nettles in the garden.
Yeah, that's good. I kind of found it was like a bit of an exciting game of Jeopardy. Whether or not which would hurt more.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose that comes into things like putting hot water bottles on, cold ice packs on, getting a TENS machine out into just to modulate the pain, and that's another approach.
No, thank you.
I may have missed it, but can I ask? Obviously, you've got the chronic pain with the AKU and all the side effects of that, but does that mean that your your pain receptors are heightened for other things. And I'm going to be very honest about this and very open, and I don't want anyone to laugh. We've got a new cat, and the little kitten, who is 3 months old, is very much into scratching and biting. And I'm being told constantly to man up because it's just a kitten biting me. But I've basically then said, well, this really hurts. This really hurts me. And yeah, I've obviously then said, oh, okay. But is it, when you've got chronic pain, does that mean that your pain receptors are heightened?
Yeah, quick answer is yes. Long answer is, remember that thing we went through with me hitting my finger and it going all the way up through the central nervous system, right up to the brain. It's heightened, and people with chronic pain, it's heightened at every stage of that, right from the receptors in your finger, the various hormones that form around that, through to the spinal cord. When the impulses are coming up the spinal cord, then there's a thing called neuronal plasticity, which means that you can't build new nerves. If you break your neck and get paralyzed, you're going to stay paralyzed, but you can build new synapses, new connections between nerves. And so what happens in chronic pain is that the pain pathways will synapse out and incorporate other parts of the spinal cord. So the whole bit transmitting the pain gets bigger and bigger, and the pain gets more and more intense. And then that's leaving us. Then there are also descending pathways. If before you had chronic pain, you bashed your shin, it would hurt, and it would die down to a dull throb. That's your descending pathways working. Now, people with chronic pain have virtually no descending pathway activity. So you're not getting the down modulation from the brain either. Then, of course, you've got what's happening in the brain and what's happening to your frontal cortex and the emotional changes along with that. All these things will contribute to the fact that, yes, if you have chronic pain, any other pain will be worse. And that goes back to what I was saying before about people going to hospital for an operation. Nobody understands that their pain is going to be much worse because they've got chronic pain. So yeah, you tell them, this kitten's hurting me.
Yeah. He is very lovely, I hasten to add.
Oh, yeah.
He does sit on me and we have cuddles, but
the positive emotions from that kitten will be very helpful for you as well.
Cat Dracula, I call him. So.
Do you feel validated, David, that you can go back and say, Dr. Jones has said that this is a real thing?
Exactly. I'm not just a wimp.
Not at all. Not at all. No. No. So the way Hannah said that just then, it reminded me of another patient who came to one of our CBT classes, and he kind of became Jim's and my enforcer. If anybody, what we tried to do in the CBT class was to encourage discussion, and we'd say we're not infallible. We don't have the answers. If you think we're wrong, say so. And poor old Keith got in his bonnet. Every time anybody argued with us, he'd stand up and say, "If Dr. Jones and Dr. Ledson say this, don't worry."
I was going to ask, just as for my own understanding more of our patients, if anyone feels like saying it or typing it in the chat, is what I wrote it down here, is what has been the biggest emotional challenge of living with pain, if you could pinpoint it.
I think it varies between patients. Obviously, another conclusion I've come to over the years is that there's not a sort of homogenous group. Every patient with pain has got pain in their own way. But I think we were talking about earlier, the grief and the feeling of bereavement is one of the hardest things to deal with. The feeling is simply that I'm just not where I really wanted to be 5-10 years ago. And that's really hard, really hard. And then there's the loneliness, the isolation, the fact that you may change relationships with your friends and family because of it. That's also very, very difficult. It is hard having chronic pain. It's very hard.
I think also, Hannah, sometimes it's like some of us have experienced where you perhaps have had to give up a job because of it, and a job that you've loved.
Yeah.
And that can be really difficult when, you've been going out to work and doing all the things that you've enjoyed. So that's quite a big emotional thing.
It is.
Sometimes you can be lucky, like I was lucky, and I was able to retrain and go into another career that I always wanted to do and got the support to do that. But eventually ended up having to finishing that job for exactly the same reason. because
Yeah.
of their condition. And I think that's one of the biggest thing. It's loss of one thing or another.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Loss of career that you valued is really important as well. Again, one patient springs to mind who was sitting in the consultation. He looked at the telephone on the desk. Said, "Oh," he says, "I see you've got the Cisco system." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I was part of the team that developed that," and didn't know this himself, but there were tears just trickling down his cheeks at how much he's lost. That was the first time I'd met him. He's done pretty well, actually. There are, it seems unlikely, but some people you can look for improvement. You never go back to how you were before you got chronic pain, but you can get a better life.
We've got Kelly with her hand up there. Did you want to ask a question, Kelly, or feed something back, or was it an accident?
I just wanted to follow on from what Tony had said. So we're having structural changes at my job, and some people are facing redundancy. I'm not in that at-risk group at the moment, but I'm looking to leave anyway because of the implications of these changes. And at the moment, I largely work from home, and all of the jobs that I'm seeing are don't have remote options, and I'm quite nervous about the implications of that, because my chronic pain has got significantly worse over the last, particularly the last 3 or 4 years, and I'm really, really nervous about the implications of going into a full-time position where I have to physically be in the building all the time, because you can manage it so much better when you're at home and you have your own little routines and things, but it does make me worry about what it's going to be like moving into a non-remote job.
Yes, there's no easy answers to that. I mean, I think if you have an employer who's prepared to, there are. It's a question whether the employer is prepared to follow good practice, follow legal requirements. There is an obligation to make the work environment as friendly to as it possibly can be, with whatever is needed. And there should be some kind of obligation that if you can do the job from home, you should be able to. I mean, there's been a lot of negative stuff about it. I mean, coming from the government, not from the government, from the previous government, saying, "Well, after COVID, you're a waster if you don't come back into work." And what's his name? I can't. I'm just trying to think of his name. Jacob Rees-Mogg leaving those notes on people's desks saying you should be in work. I mean, it's outrageous. So, but there is a lot of negativity out there. So, I suppose the main thing is just trying to find an employer that will actually do what they're supposed to do, rather than putting pressure on you to do something you don't want to do. Difficult again.
I suppose I wonder whether the places that you're applying to as well, whether, excuse me, when you're doing research on an employer, for example, what their values and qualities are and what sort of policies they already have in place as a place of work. I have a friend of mine who's got MS, so she's sort of, declining and has had to move work. And it took her a while to find somewhere, but she's gone into this really lovely place of work that is really supportive of those good days and those bad days, and understands that, and has let her go part-time as well. So she started off there full-time and is now part-time. So lots of things have been put in place. So I suppose perhaps when you're going for jobs, it's as much as an interview from you interviewing them as it is for them interviewing you. So making sure that it's somewhere that would, or trying to make sure that it's somewhere that would be supportive of those things.
Yeah, I think if it's an appropriate thing, if you're in that sort of thing, if you have a trade union rep, they can be very helpful as well, just to make sure you get what you're entitled to.
Mm-hmm. I suppose as well, starting in a new role, it's also new colleagues around you, isn't it, as well? So people that don't know your condition or know what life is like for you, I suppose it could be quite daunting having to start that journey again as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hannah, I would say as well, I know Dr. Jones mentioned unions, um, but also when you go into a new workplace and you've got those new colleagues that you're trying to make aware of your condition and all, I think sometimes people are a little bit wary of occupational health if they have occupational health within services available. But I was really fortunate and I had really good occupational health services in the second job that I went into, because the first job when I left, I wasn't even diagnosed with AKU at that time. But it was the second job when I was a primary school teacher then and got diagnosed with AKU. But I went straight to occupational health to share that with them, rather than waiting for occupational health to call me in if I was having sick days because of it and whatever, and sat down with them and discussed through what the condition was. And straight away, when I started talking to them about it, they went to get a form to fill out for me to finish on ill health because they thought that's why I'd gone to see them. And when I explained that that wasn't why I'd gone to see them, that I actually wanted to carry on in work, um, we sat down and worked out where adjustments perhaps needed to be made in work and things like that to keep me in work. And they were really supportive. But I know some people have quite negative views of occupational health and how employees can use them um, in a way to beat them down a bit.
Thank
Yeah,
you for
it
sharing
can be two
that.
ways. It can be loss of trust involved. I mean, one of the biggest employers around Liverpool used to be Ford Motor Company, and having chronic pain and working at Ford was very difficult because if your pain got too much, you had to stop on the production line. The whole production line stopped. It was very difficult. And the several patients I had with chronic pain who worked for Fords were not really very happy with their occupational health doctor. But having said that, later on, she did actually get them a very good retirement on ill health grounds on package. So there was a bit of a lack of trust both ways, and the patients perceived her as trying to push them back to work, and she actually was trying to help them. So yeah, having a good relationship right from the start with occupational health is very important.
That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, Tony. I wouldn't have thought of occupational health myself. I'm aware that we're coming up toward the end of the session, and I just want to make sure that there isn't any other questions or feedback or sharing points that anybody has for Dr. Jones.
It's George here.
George.
Hi everyone. Just to reiterate some of those discussions, I work for quite a large finance company, and they do, they do engage with the staff to accommodate needs. So we have a requirement to go into the office twice a week, but there are options for exceptions on whatever the right grounds are. Me personally, I find it beneficial to go in the office. Otherwise, I'm sat at a desk all day, and actually makes me feel worse. So as per this morning session, movement is good if you can do it. It's just Tony said, engage with your occupational and HR folks, because it's certainly the larger companies have policies in place to deal with these things, and they're not looking to get rid of you. They're looking to accommodate you to deliver what your requirements are for work. That's my perspective anyway.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. I think it must be helpful for one another, which is why we're going to have a facilitated chat later for those that can stay, to be in the company of other people that really understand the problems that you have and the issues that you have to face, and really understand how you can think about things and solutions that have been given today that perhaps people that don't live with what you guys have to live with, we wouldn't think of those things. So I think it's been a really useful session, and comments in the chat have sort of said that as well. I just wanted to quickly ask you, Dr. Jones, with your slides, are you happy for us to share them as they are, or do you want to do some editing to them before we send them out? Are they good to go, or?
No, you can share them as they are,
Fab.
and that'll get everybody access to that paper, and acts as a nice little aid memoir for them as well.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
brilliant.
that's great.
Thank you. We're going to share the slides from the other sessions today, and also the recording itself. So I just wanted to make sure. If there's nothing else, then I just want to say thank you for coming along, because we know how helpful your previous session was, and we knew that we needed to have you at this Self-Care for Air as well. So thank you. And thank you for your continued support with our patients every month as well, because I know they really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks so much. Feel free to stay if you want to, Dr. Jones. We've got other things going on this afternoon. So we have a motivational speaker now that Georgia and I have seen previously last year, and then a research update from Ranga and Co. this afternoon. So if you want to and you're not busy, feel free to stay in the background. But obviously we know people have got their own lives, so it's entirely up to you if you want to stay along or not. Okay. So everyone, we've got one more session before our break. I asked the gentleman to join a little bit earlier, but I don't know. Has he? Oh, is he here? George, is Connor here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, fab. Hello. Hi, Connor.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. So
Good.
just to let everybody know that's here, George and I went to the Rare Disease Showcase in Manchester at the tail end of last year, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the house. So be prepared. Connor is very emotive in his talking, but it was really wonderful to hear his experience, albeit it's comes from a place of difficulty. We really felt like it would be great to have him come along and do something. And then we got to do this in person virtually. So we reached out, and here he is. So this is Connor. He's going to talk through his journey and his rare condition and how it's affected him and his family.
Yeah, so my name's Connor Pebbles, and I live with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is basically the fragility of blood vessels, major organs, and I only got diagnosed 2 years ago. The way I like to put this is that basically it's not the journey I chose, but it's one of the journeys that's made us who I am. So just a little bit about me. So I run a entertainment business, which is like for kids, bouncy castles, entertainment. I also work as a support worker for people with learning disabilities. Um, I've got two children. One Arthur, he's coming up 4, and Alfred, he is coming up 3 at the end of the year. My beautiful wife Emma, and I am also 30 years old. I know that some of you say I look younger, but yeah. So basically, life before so I like to put it as like before the diagnosis, during the diagnosis, and after the diagnosis. So, um, like before the diagnosis was basically I was very fit. I was boxing. I was running marathons. I was climbing mountains. Everything that I shouldn't really be doing. Um, lifting weights. Yeah, obviously going out with friends. Uh, quite a lot as well on obviously on a weekend. Um, so I was basically carefree, to be honest. I was just living the way I wanted to. And then the diagnosis came about 1.5 years ago. Well, it's like September. Um, Basically, it was a week before I was meant to fly out to. I was supposed to fly out to Cyprus for my brother's wedding. And what had happened was, I was at work and I just got the phone call, um, because I had to go through like, sorry, I missed out that bit. So, my mum went into hospital about 6 months prior, and she had got diagnosed with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and then we had to go through the procedure. So literally within a couple of weeks we were testing, and then the weeks just turned into months. The months just dragged and dragged and dragged, and then it was a week before I was meant to fly. So at a time that was supposed to be one of the happiest times of my family's lives turned out to be like it just wasn't a nice time really. Seeing my brother getting married. Um, and I mean the first thought that came to me was with it being genetic. I thought to myself, oh, I'm not really bothered about myself. It's obviously more about the kids, to see who got diagnosed, or if they've got it. Um, so I, like I say, I got diagnosed the week week or a couple of days before I was meant to fly, and then um, it's I suppose I can't really remember that period. All I remember is reaching out to Annabelle's Challenge, within 20 minutes of the phone call, really, which is like a charity that support people with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Um, and they just kind of went in a little bit of detail of exactly what it was. Um, and when you look onto Google, it's not necessarily the best thing in the world. Um, and then I mean the first thing that really came to mind was just like I say, it was just more the kids. And I think that's what's hurt us more because obviously I felt like I was, if they were to be diagnosed, I was just feeling like it was just a load of guilt. Um, really, because it didn't come easy having them either because we had to go through IVF for them. Um, so it's one of those mental challenges thinking I wouldn't change them now I've got them, but we could have stopped it in its tracks. Um, but that being said, um, I wouldn't change them for anything in the world. Um, so from that, I came back off holiday and I went into a bit of a dark place. I just literally stopped everything. Stopped seeing friends, didn't really talk to family, and I'll be honest, I went on the sick at work. I just couldn't cope um with the what ifs. Um, so I had to kind of get me head around that. And then I can't remember what it was that's flicked the switch, but um oh sorry, yeah, so that was it. So I got diagnosed in September, and then all the way up until the end of December, we got Alfred, the boys tested, and then Alfred turned 2 um at the end of December, and then 2 weeks later, Alfred got diagnosed, um just after a couple of weeks later than his second birthday. Um, thank God that Arthur hasn't got it. And that's basically what switched. That's when I thought, right, like I can't show Alfred that this defines him. Um, so I had to kind of really, really dial in and focus on getting myself better so I could be that dad that I've always wanted to be, and then also to ensure Alfred, um, s- obviously says it's okay to not be okay, but at the same time at that age, it's just like know that I'm just that father figure that he needs. Um, so then I found a few ways to kind of cope with my diagnosis, and that was definitely by talking to my friends. because they were hounding us, to be honest, and I was just like, no, I'll just go away. But it was, so I just started talking to my friends, talking to my family. Um, it was kind of one of those things as well, talking to the kids. They're so young to understand, but it's like, they were just like, oh, it's okay, Daddy. Like, do you know what I mean? And that kind of gives a little bit of reassurance. Um, so from there, I used a little bit of ambition to feel more in control of the vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, is to think that I was actually doing something about it. So I started up a support group in the Northeast for individuals with vascular Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and rare diseases. Um, so that runs every 2 to 3 months. What we found out, like, it works pretty well. Um, and then I started doing bits for charity. So doing stuff for the charity, so raising money. Um, so I've always been into fitness and all of that, and I think one of the things I had to do for my own mental health was to get back into the gym, but to a degree where I felt safe. So when I was talking to um the professionals, the and they were saying, look, you can't lift over 10 kilograms, you can't sprint, you can't do this, that, and the other, which is valuable advice. I took it all on board, but at the same time, my children aren't light, and I felt I know, I suppose I know my body and I know my limits, and I use that as well. I'm not going to pick my children up. If they need a hug off us, I'm picking them up. Like, that's my attitude towards that one. Don't get us wrong, I'm not lifting over like 50, 60 kilos, like even 40 kilos in the gym. I'm just doing like just regular activity, just more for me mental health, you know. Um, so that being said, obviously I got back in the gym and stuff, and me and good friend of mine just started talking. We're just like, well, why don't we just do an absolutely insane challenge? Um, Obviously I couldn't necessarily take part, but I'd done all the organising for it. And so what we're doing, we completed a virtual cycle from the most southern tip of Africa to the northern tip of Africa, which was 8 million meters. So it went from the Friday afternoon all the way through to the Sunday midday, and we'd completed it within um 15 minutes to spare. But don't get us wrong, it wasn't just two, it was like the full of the gym going all the way through the night. There was like six bikes just constantly on rotation. It was one hell of a challenge. So we ended up raising like 9.5 grand from that, and obviously, as I expected, all the emotions came with it. Um, and then I'd already started organising like a charity ball. I mean, I've been fundraising since 2017 for my sister. She was diagnosed with MS at the age of 14. Um, so it's always been within us to kind of, it just makes feel like I can do something about it. So then I started fundraising for a charity ball, and that was just like literally Saturday just gone, and now on 29,000 from that. And like I say, it just kind of makes you feel like you're doing something and you can help in one way or another. Um, I mean, there's been absolutely tons of fundraising that I've done, but I think now it's kind of I'm focused in on an Annabelle's challenge and that charity, because of how much they've helped me. Um, so I suppose the bit that kind of fuels me is definitely Alfred. Um, and I think obviously the support from my wife. If it wasn't for my wife, I wouldn't be able to do it because she's the one that makes sure the house is right and um basically puts the tea on the table as such, just to make sure that I can go out and work the two jobs um and do what I can for myself as well, to keep me head right. Um, I mean, I have obviously you've Hannah, you've obviously heard the poem that I've written, and it took us from like it was a way of channeling um channeling me emotions rather than getting frustrated, angry at the world. Just thinking why me children. Um, and putting like pen to paper was a bit of a relief, really, in the way I kind of focused in on it. As you're all probably well aware that your mind can play tricks on you, and the next thing you know, you're literally going west. So it was definitely one way I kind of focused in. Um, would you like to hear the poem, or should I just carry on?
It's entirely up to you if you feel comfortable to share it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I can speak for Georgia and I that we definitely remember the poem.
yeah,
It's so emotional and so lovely. And
yeah,
I think when we saw you in Manchester, it was the first time you'd actually ever gotten up and spoken
yeah,
in that way. And it was a huge group of people as well listening all to you, wasn't it? So it was
yeah,
quite a lot. Little less scarier, I think, with such a smaller group and
yeah,
virtually as well. But yeah, please feel free. This whole session is about sort of helping people to feel motivated and coming up with ways to, as you said, putting pen to paper helped you deal with things. So it's another way that you might be sharing something with somebody in this group that thinks actually I might do that as well. So certainly, if
yeah,
you feel comfortable, then please. I suppose also something I remember from when we saw you last in Manchester as well, which you may be touching on a bit later on, but is sort of how you just really ploughed your diagnosis into helping with the charity, but also the other things that you were doing. So obviously the ball has come and gone now, but you were focused on that, weren't you? And
yeah,
I think it was really admirable. I remember just thinking, gosh, that's if I was to ever have something like that happen to me or my family, that I would want to do what you did, which is obviously you had your time where you were in a dark place and perhaps shut yourself off, but
yeah,
then very quickly, or perhaps not quickly, but after getting, your son's diagnosis and deciding that actually, okay, this isn't going to define me, I'm going to go and do something with it. I think that really touched all of us.
yeah.
Um,
No,
Certainly
it's
stayed with George and I for sure.
yeah. I think that's one of the things in it. It's like, um, I, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but how long can you sit there and dwell on it?
Mhm.
And be in that dark place for, and finding something to do alongside the diagnosis, kind of. Sometimes you help yourself actually by tuning into
Mhm.
tuning in like the support group that I set up. Um, so yeah, sorry, we'll just go on to the slideshow. Um, that's Alfred. That was when he was like, well, he was a big lad. I think it may have been 14 months, maybe a little bit younger. Um, so yeah, like I said, obviously this this little bit here is where I had to dial in and just think about putting pen to paper. And I've actually got there's actually a video now that the poem's been kind of published. Um so it's on like my own Instagram slash the charity's Instagram as well. And I mean, to be fair, if you if you want to have a little bit more into it, I set up like a Instagram page, like sharing my story and sharing what I'm doing, basically sharing how I'm feeling, like a little bit of a vlog as well. And it's called The Veds Dad. If you ever want to just have a look, and it's just on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, um, it basically just came from a little period of where there was this silent battles that I was facing, and yeah, I'll just get cracking there. So dear Veds, oh Veds, you crept in silently, unseen, a shadow lurking deep beneath my skin. I lived as though I had no cause to fear, fit, strong, alive, with dreams held dear. I ran through life with joy and pride, boxed since 12, with fire inside. Half marathons, adventures with friends, not knowing how this story ends. And while I danced with health and might, you waited hidden, out of sight. Each push, each sprint, each daring feat, a silent gamble with your deceit. 3 months we stood in fear's cold grip, a family lost in sinking ships. The days dragged by, the silence loud, till tests confirmed you in the crowd. Since then, you've taken far too much, stolen joys and gentle touch. The memories we might have made, now ghosts that haunt and slowly fade. But worse than all you've done to me, you've claimed my boy so cruelly. Why him? He's pure, he's small, he's kind. You shattered peace and robbed our minds. A stumble now, a fall, a game, could end in tears and whispered names. You make each outing edged with red, each hug a prayer, each laugh a thread. But let me make one thing quite clear. You are not the victor here. With Annabelle's challenge by our side, and Sheffield's strength and heartfelt pride, we fight you now with all our might, with science, love, and burning light. You may have marked us with your scar, but we know exactly who you are. And that's basically it. So from that, it kind of takes you through the journey of first getting diagnosed to when Alfred got diagnosed. And I can still feel myself now as soon as I say that Alfred's got diagnosed, gets his, but then my tone changes because like I feel like I still need to fight for it. I still need to do something. Um, and I think probably I'm so grateful that I'm still here. I'm grateful that I've woke up this morning, and I'm grateful that I can still be here to support my family and my children, but also to give those individuals that's suffering a little bit of shared light, and yeah, it's tough. And don't get us wrong, like even when it came to yesterday, I had a massive wobbler because obviously the charity ball with such of excitement. I had so much on my brain beforehand, like I had so much to do, occupy myself so much. Then after the ball, it dramatically changed because the world just went silent. There was no one texting us about the ball. There was no one texting us asking what's happening, when's the next thing, and I suppose it was just kind of coming to terms with the silence, in my own head. Um, so there's still going to be tough days, um, and it still gets his weekly hour, I suppose, but it's same again. What I've found that massively works for me the night before would be planning me next day, so planning what I'm doing the following day. Because if I wake up, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I just like I just go west. Do you know what I mean? Um, but yeah, it's a tough one, like you know. Um, has anyone got any questions?
That was going to be my question.
Has
I
it?
was going to say, has anyone got any questions for you, or if there's anything, that resonated, which I'm sure it does, because you've touched on things that I know our patients have fed back to me during the time of working at the charity. But if anyone has got any questions or any feedback or anything, comments, that kind of thing, please either share it in the chat or speak to, unmute yourself and share it.
And I've just unmuted myself. Yeah, Connor, I think it's quite amazing. So, firstly, congratulations on everything that you've achieved
Mhm.
after something that's obviously quite devastating for you and your family.
Yeah.
What I wanted to know, how rare is the disease? How many people does it affect?
So in the UK, there's only 732, I believe, that's diagnosed with it. Um, and then you're probably looking like another 150 undiagnosed. Assumption, like that's under assumption. It could be more, it could be less, but there's only 700 now that's diagnosed in the UK. Um,
And
and
is there lots of research going on? Is it a well supported disease from a research point of view?
so Annabella's challenge is the one that funds the research. So it's not very well backed. There is a research project going on at the minute with something called zebrafish. So basically, what they're trying to distinguish is whether there's a scale of severity. So, say for instance, I've got a certain type of gene within the deficiency that makes us less susceptible to aneurysms, ruptures, and then another there might be another bit of the scale where basically you need to like take all precautions as you can. Do you know what I mean? So that's what they're trying to distinguish, whether there is a scale. Um, but same again, funding. Um, and talking about what you just said there, it's kind of one of my next longer visions, should I say, is to basically fight for funding, for um. I don't. So I don't want to say it myself as a cure because I don't want to. I'm just setting myself up. I don't want to be setting myself up for failure. But I believe that there's a way out of it, essentially. And I would like to say one day that Alfred will say to me, Dad, there's a way out of it. Like we've done it. Do you know what I mean? So it's not going to be short term, but finding ways to like go to maybe find a way to go to Parliament. Um, Even if there's a way to get testing done at a young age, like as soon as the baby's born. So because for me, knowledge is power.
Mm.
Because there was there was a young lad, we're really close to the family now. They live within the northeast. He died at the age of 14. Basically rupture of his I think it was his bladder. So that ruptured. And I believe if they knew at a younger age, he would still be here.
Yeah.
Due to his lifestyle that he was leading. Um, you can put precautions in place, like obviously I'm on medication now. But I just wish I knew it when I was younger because, like I say, knowledge is power. Um,
Mm.
so that's kind of the
So
direct.
there are certain medications available to help with your symptoms.
So the they're there to stop the onset or
Yeah.
like blood pressure tablets basically. Um, so it's like basically VEDS is like um the deficiency in collagen. So within the blood vessels. So if there's a lot of extra output or a lot of pressure, it'll just basically cause an aneurysm. It's like a balloon, and then it can just burst. It can be fatal. And I think that's why the sooner you know the better. And you can
Yeah.
be in for regular scans. You can be observed. Like I'm in for regular scans now, yearly. Even though, so there's something that came up quite recently, which I'm currently dealing with. But before that, like my first scan, they said, right, we're gonna scan you every year, even though there's nothing wrong with you at that time. We're still going to scan you. So it's kind of really, they know the longer we perceive that the lifespan would be.
Yeah. What about with your little boy? Like how does his day to day look?
Um, at the
Is it
minute, it,
does it progress or is he kind of like how
um,
does it work?
so it's probably on us at the minute, because it's our anxiety, it's our,
Yeah.
like, so anything can happen if he bumps into a table, if it hits a certain area in the stomach, that could be it. Um, it just has to be the right spot, and that's it gone. That's him gone. But I would definitely say the anxiety of it's more of on our side. I mean, pardon for me swearing, but he's a little shit. Like he looks.
How old is he now?
So he is coming up 3 in December.
Oh
Um.
gosh, yeah. So he's kind of kamikaze running here, there, and
Oh
everywhere,
yeah,
and
yeah. Like he's
throwing
jumping.
himself down slides.
He's jumping off the stairs. Like he's like, "Daddy, Daddy!" Now turn around and he's like jumping at us. So I have to catch him. It's like that kind of. He's just living a normal childhood, really, until he gets that knowledge. And I suppose I'm going to probably have to try and battle with that one because I suppose everyone else knows he's got it, but he doesn't. you know.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to but that's where Annabelle's challenge comes in. So they like do school talks. They're gonna come up to his nursery when he goes in January to do a talk and just to make sure the staff are aware of what it is. Um, which we're pretty nervous about. Uh, like
Yeah, no, I could imagine.
leaving him with just for other people. Because I do believe they're only as safe as they are when they're with you. Um, but but we kind of have to let him. No matter how long he's got on this earth, we have to give him the best one.
Yes. Yeah. No, honestly, I think that's quite incredible. Sorry, I'm kind of hogging it. So it's partly because my son has AKU, so
Yeah.
there's lots of it where I can obviously not with the disease that you and your son have, but there are lots of it that's very relatable, and I kind of go,
Mm.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Especially, I think AKU is very, very different because my son is totally symptom free, but I think it's that initial shock
Yeah,
when they're first diagnosed or whatever. And then also you're like with you and your fundraising and things like that. That was also my immediate reaction
yeah,
was to initially just thinking, oh, it's the pits. Like you said, don't Google. It's possibly the worst thing that you could do.
yeah,
But then how you then react to that and you go and you fundraise and raise awareness and all
yeah.
those sorts of things. So yeah,
Exactly what you just said there.
amazing.
It's it's raising awareness because if they say, for instance, if there's someone in the street that knows that he's got it and he's tripped over, then they know how to kind of essentially
Yeah.
pass that on to paramedics, or because what we've struggled with is it's that rare that a lot of medical professionals don't have an absolute clue. They know what EDS is, which is
Mm.
Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. They know what HEDS is, which is the hypermobility, but they don't know what the VEDS is, which is absolutely insane. You wouldn't think it,
Yeah.
but because it's that rare, they literally touched on it for I think it's like 2 days within when they go to med school and stuff. So that 2 days of learning like literally just disappears.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's a challenging one to kind of get across the severity because then what we found is like professionals kind of sometimes we have found one good doctor actually, which is like all in. Um, like he wants to know the ins and outs, but 95% of the time it's like it's pulling your teeth out, you know.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so that's why the raising awareness is so essential, you know.
And is there I could probably talk to you all literally all day about this, so I
I
don't want to hog it for other
mean, just grab my
people.
number if you want, you know. Like I
Yeah,
honestly
no,
don't
honestly,
mind.
we could have a good chat about it. I just wondered, like from our point of view, from the AKU Society. So that was founded. One of the founders of the AKU Society, I don't know if you know the background, is a guy called Nick Saru, and both of his sons had it,
Yeah,
have AKU. And that was his driving force. And he's bit like Hannah, like everybody that knows Nick will know that he is an absolute powerhouse and has basically dedicated his career since to number one, getting a drug uh, released into the UK and whatnot, but also to eventually find a cure. So I think it comes from a place where um, parents are leaders
yeah,
in these sort of situations.
yeah,
And I think if you're that kind of person, which clearly you are, that can advocate for this disease, um, I think yeah, you'll do wonders.
yeah. And that is the ambition, to be honest. Like I like obviously at the minute, uh, finances are just finances. Do you know what I mean? Like obviously putting a roof over head and stuff, but this is
Yeah.
always in sideline. You know, like don't get us wrong. Obviously, I'll be open and honest with you. At this current moment in time, my wife essentially just works for the business because she used to work for like just Gated Council. But she took it hard. So I took that on my shoulders to say, right, actually, you're not doing all right, so I'm gonna retire. I'll just work the business and then I'll work my other job as well. And then obviously all the fundraising on top of that, all the support groups or like everything, because that is what I need to do. You know, I've
Mm.
always seen it like that. And now she can give Alfred 100%. Now she can give my other son 100%. And the time that I do get to spend time with them is quality time. You know, it's not just coming in bath, this, that, and the other, which is quality time, obviously. But it's like, but no, I can take you out, I can do this, I can take you soft play, or I can do something with you. You know, like that relieves your mom, you
Mm.
know. So yeah, it's just an absolute whirlwind, really. Uh
No, I
but
can imagine. I can well imagine.
yeah.
Well, I
But
can't
no,
quite imagine what you're going through, but yeah. from my sort of personal experience, I can touch on it.
It's just the drive in it. It's just that
Yeah,
what kind of fuels it. And any parent, any good parents, or just anyone in general, if it affects you in a certain way, you'll do something about it. Like, you know, um, I would say that's more just human nature on myself.
yeah, that's interesting. One and my very final question, and then I'll stop. You touched on, you said that you had your kids through IVF.
Mhm.
Is VEDS on the genetic screen, like on the genetic screening list? No.
So that I did forget to mention that, but so it's not a genetic screening. So if, you can get them tested for it.
Yeah.
So you can get the embryos tested. That costs over £10,000, I believe. To get the embryos sent across to America, um,
Wow.
and then get them tested and then get them sent back. So that's what my twin brother is currently going through at the moment.
Oh
Um,
gosh. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So he's got the opportunity,
Mm.
because he's got the knowledge, to stop it in his tracks. And not that any of the embryo is less worthy, but you've got a choice, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It's about choice then, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, it's quite costly, like. But I wouldn't change outfit. Like,
Mm. No, of
now,
course you wouldn't.
you know.
And
Um,
is it one that's on the list? Like, the pinprick list that they do when they're born?
so
Is it
now,
on that list? So it's
no,
not on
no.
that either.
So that's what I was kind of trying to touch upon. So that's one of my next kind of things within the next year is to kind of channel that and see where I can go with getting it early testing.
Mm.
Um, like I was saying before, knowledge is power, and kind of gives that the guidance to adults, the parents, to know how to best support children.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
brilliant. Well done.
thank you
Well
very
done, Dad.
much.
Yeah, someone else has put in the chat that you're a brilliant dad, Connor. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah,
Mm.
thank you. Admirable, all the things that you're doing. And I just wondered if there was anybody else that had any sort of anything that they wanted to say or any questions or things like that. I had one question and I just note them down as we're going through these sessions because otherwise my brain forgets about them. But what I wanted to know was, when you're sort of on the days when you're feeling really overwhelmed by your diagnosis and your son's diagnosis, is there anything, I mean, obviously you've written that beautiful poem, but is there anything that helps you keep going that you think might be useful for our patient group, that, you're feeling really overwhelmed, but you do this or you talk to yourself about this, that, and the other, or ways that you sort of channel things so that it's easier for you?
So it's actually it's a good point. So what I mean, I sometimes I can be my world's worst enemy for not doing it, but on the days that where it's like intense, I'll try and connect myself to my own body. So I try and reconnect and rewire my brain. Actually think, actually, I'm still here. I'm not just in my head. So what I tend to do is I may just spend a little bit longer in the shower and let the water drip on each part of my body. So I'll say basically, I'll close my eyes, let the water drip, but then I'll say, right, that's my right arm. It sounds silly, and some of you might already do it, some of you might not, but I'll say, right, this is my right arm, this is my left leg, this is my right leg, this is my back, this is my chest. You know what I mean? And it's like the connecting the sensations, and that does really help me, kind of ground myself, I suppose. So I'm not away with the fairies,
Okay.
So that's probably one technique that I would definitely vouch on. It does take a little bit of practice because when I first heard about it, I was listening to podcasts, and there's loads of stuff in there that I couldn't fathom.
Yeah.
Um, but that's one of the things that definitely I connected with, and then essentially it just comes with practice, you know.
I do. I think it fits very nicely in with the theme of today, because self-care and more the holistic side of things isn't for everybody, and it does take a bit of practice to say,
Yeah,
okay, like this might be a bit outside the box, but I'm
yeah,
going to give it a
100%.
go. So I think that that's a really great example of what we're sort of trying to achieve from today. So thank you for sharing that
Yeah,
one
yeah.
more.
No problem at all. Like I say, it's just kind of pulling yourself back in, like in ways, you know. Um, like sometimes I do taunt myself. I mean, I've supported myself since a very young age, to be honest. But I do
Not
help.
alone. I talk to
Yeah,
myself
it
a
does
lot.
it does help with it, like expressing feelings or expressing thoughts. But then when you hear yourself back,
Mhm.
it doesn't sound as bad.
Yeah,
You know, in your head it sounds, oh my God, this is the world's worst thing ever. But when you hear yourself back, it's actually thinking, how am I gonna sort it? You
yeah.
know. So yeah.
We've had another couple of comments. So well done in everything you and your family are doing. You are all amazing, and you've done really well. Literally, your life story. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So I did think that this session would come across well, but not just me. Sorry, Georgia and I both sort of said we really need to have you come and talk to our patient
Yeah.
group. So we are so grateful. Is there anything else? I know that you've got the school run, haven't you, Connor? So is there anything
Yeah.
else that anybody has to say? Otherwise, we can actually break a little bit earlier for our afternoon break, if there isn't anything else or any other things that you want to ask Connor about while we have him.
Connor, I'll come and find you on Instagram.
Yeah, and that's not a problem at all. Like I say, it's just literally the ved's dad. And then literally there's quite a few people I'm talking to on there, kind of like because I've done a few of these now. And it's just nice to chat, you know, like just talk about what's on your head. And I think my advice just to anyone, don't be scared to put yourself first, with children, without children. Uh, just put yourself first, because especially from a parent's perspective, if you're not 100%, how can you give 100%? You know? And I think one of the quotes I kind of live by, even if you're feeling, even if you've got like 20% within you, and you can only give 20%, that's you're technically giving 100%, you know? So just do what you can when you can, and yeah, just live the best life you can, you know?
Brilliant.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming along today. We really, really appreciate it.
Not a problem at all.
I think it feeds so well into what we're doing today, and also gives a break from all of the learning points and things that
Yeah.
we've talked about. It breaks that up ready for our afternoon session. So we're all really grateful for you coming along, Connor. Thank you so much.
No,
And
not a problem. Anytime.
you get more follows now. People, I've made a note of it, 'cause I want to follow your journey and see what you're doing and how things are going for you. Because I remember you talking about the ball, but I couldn't remember when it was, and I was thinking, I'm sure it's coming up. So I'm glad that that went really well for you.
Yeah, it was literally Saturday. Saturday
Did
just
it did it all go to plan, like how you wanted it to and everything?
I'm such a fanny, so yes, it did.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm quite like, what's it called? Not strict, but it's like
Regimented?
regimented.
Yeah.
Yes. Apart from the tidying up in the house, that's one thing I'm not necessarily necessarily regiment with. But yeah, when
Brilliant.
all went to plan, and like I say, we've um like raised over 29 grand. So yeah,
It's amazing.
pretty
So,
good.
so good. Good for you.
Mm.
Well, do you know, keep an eye on what we're up to, and if there's anything that you think we can help you with as a charity, let us know, and we'll vice versa. It's been so lovely having you here, Sam. I'm so grateful for you coming along.
No, not a problem. And if you host one in person,
Yeah,
um, and then
yeah,
or just any time in the future, just let us
yeah,
know, and
we'll do.
I'll pop down because it'd be good to chat to you, you know.
Amazing, we will do. Thank you. Lovely to see
Not a
you again,
problem.
Connor. Thanks so much.
Yes, take care of yourselves.
Take care. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye bye now.
Bye.